This last week, I got to sit down and see a preview of Star Wars Outlaws in its current state in a preview event. Most of the footage is going to come out later this week, but I wanted to discuss what I thought of what I saw and experienced and some of the answers that we've got behind the scenes about Star Wars Outlaws. Subscribe if you like these videos. Give it a thumbs up. It absolutely helps the channel. First, Outlaws sits right between Empire Strikes Back and Return of the Jedi in the timeline. They pretty much promised no Jedi or Sith in the game. It's a deeper dive into the life of this smuggler, so the gameplay reflects that with a ton of stealth that we see in the gameplay, sneaking around, using environments to pull enemies, and when in combat, it hits heavy, but it's fast, especially in tone, with small skirmishes where Kay Vess, who's the main character, and Nyx, who's a companion, are taking jobs on the periphery of the Empire, including going to planets and moons, included in a lot of the major locations from the movies and the fiction. This also fits closely with Massive and their expertise that they've had in The Division and other titles. Another part of their prowess has always been their graphics and presentation, so I want to get this out of the way. Graphically, while there are some fits and stutters that I saw, the game isn't in its full polished state, but as a Star Wars title, it looks almost exactly as I expected at this time. There were a couple animation glitches in some of the movements and locations, especially when using different tools. Another proof of mid-work concept that we see that speaks towards where the company wants to go versus where they are at this exact moment. But the IP for Star Wars, with Massive's excellent Snowdrop engine, seems to deliver from what I saw for locations. A couple different, like snow, decrepit, destroyed starships smashed down into the planet like a drunk falling into a gutter somewhere. And these have you crawling around them, looking excellent at all times. But it's not all aiming to be some massive art direction change for the company. And in many ways, this is going to remind you of Avatar in that way, or remind you of Division in their own presentation. Now, NVIDIA's partnered with them for ray tracing support and assistance, and it's using the new ray tracing ray reconstruction to offer a much cleaner ray tracing support, at least in the footage I saw. And even in other trailers, the game's lighting isn't finished yet, and you only see some of the nice effects in water reflections and in some of the effects inside stealth missions in Imperial ships, but it looks like they're making progress there. I like it as a graphical centerpiece so far. And one noticeable trait that the game has got for it, it has gone for a Star Wars approach to the hand-to-hand and the animations there, as well as over-the-top Indiana Jones, Star Wars punches and kicks instead of that grittier, more realistic fighting and knockouts that we see in other games from them and people within this genre. It works, and watching the main lead swing like they're just trying to single-handedly launch their own starship made out of random guards' heads into the sky works perfect. It tries to lend a larger-than kind of feeling to the animation, and it works. The same can be said for computers and relays and stations and icons. Everything has that Star Wars basic iconography, whether it's translated into English in the HUD for you or not, especially in things like hacking games. But it also has a Division-like feel to it. This can be seen especially when you're sending your companion out to distract somebody or stun enemies, and while you sneak around and do the same to other guards in the area. It's not new stuff, and it does feel like Ubisoft and Massive had decided that with the dual strengths of what they have with Massive's engine and the Star Wars IP, that sticking close to it and the expectations there works well enough for them. The movement's also a very close approximation of the Division, with the Star Wars HUD and changes all applied to it. The same can be said for navigation. For better or worse, the stylings, the smooth lines along the ground, color-coded to what you're targeting or what you're doing, are all something that'll feel at least somewhat familiar. While the game does have those Division roots that are easy to see instantly, especially with the navigation and movement, it is much more stealth-based, and the game has a number of tools, items, and tactics you can use to keep Kay from being seen. One place where Ubisoft and many other companies that do titles in this space all sort of feel the same is that overlap of main characters' one-liners and paused moments in the narrative. We do see that as well here. From the original Gears to games coming out, so many titles sit comfortably in the do something, make a comment, walk slow, tell someone on the radio something else, and then get the next assignment. In some games, it works well, as it fits a fiction. In other games, it can feel odd, where Aloy in the Horizon series, or in many cases the lead in Days Gone, could feel like they were trying to scream down the loudest voice in their head. Outlaws works a little bit better. It's helped by the fact that you also have this consistent companion in Nyx, the little cat, mole rat, thingamajig, whatever it is, the world's smallest bar sidekick. I actually enjoy that creature, and I think it worked well with what you're doing here. You are a team in this game. This is a creature that's obviously far more intelligent than a dog or a cat, sort of like a monkey, and it can help you out in the stealth sections. When it goes to combat, though, and when things do get hot and heavy, there's a lot of different systems that you can use and items you can use to take out stormtroopers or other enemies very quickly, and those seem to work quite well. Now, one standout here I have to point out, though, is the music. It is absolutely phenomenal, especially during the stealth scenes with just a bit of violins and some percussion laid down in a nice rhythmic backing, and then it slightly excites when you take actions, but also increases in its punch when you see new enemies with little stingers that play out. Its speed increases and more enemies are seen, and weaves directly with a lot of the actions. This means it's highly dynamic as a soundtrack, but not one that seems hyperactive. It just feels perfectly at ease with something that you would see in a movie, and I've loved it so far. And you've heard some of this music in the different soundtracks that they played during some of the trailers. And this exact same kudo has to be laid down for the sound, which are movie close, including some callbacks to the movies, the blasters, people dying, explosions, maybe a thermal detonator or two. With environmental audio creaking out around you as you climb the sides of some gravity-cracked starship that somehow landed the most precarious position humanly possible on a planet. But it's Massive's strength when it comes to audio, especially when it comes to environmental audio, that works so well here. Some ravine that you have to climb through, and it's a mix of vertical climbing and rappelling sections and quick battles with creatures or enemies trying to take you out, and you can hear those audio chops throughout the entire game. This is also where the game does swing a bit over to the Uncharted side, which is fitting as Indiana Jones influenced everything from Tomb Raider to Uncharted and many others. The hip pack with a grappling hook, wire, it's all very Star Wars Indiana Jones, and tangibly reflects that throughout all the gameplay and the locations you go to. This is, yes, a somewhat open world style of game, or open planet at points, but it also hinges on that action movie feel. We do also get to see more starship combat in the footage, with battles happening outside mission locations with lasers and ship-seeking missiles. It's a smaller location and looks like Star Wars Squadrons at times, actually. The Trailblazer, which is the ship, is a bit boxier than the type of ships we've seen a lot of the main characters in movies use, but seems to handle pretty well. I'm not sure if the combat feels deep enough, we just have to see. There's a lot Ubisoft is keeping close to the vest on upgrades and adjustments to the ship and how it performs or doesn't as a main base. But currently it's mostly flying out of a planet's surface and then having battles in the gravity nearby, as well as ruins or asteroids. One part that's a bit more advanced is the speeder that K uses, which has its own battles and ambient enemies that you can engage in when you land on a planet and go out and do some of the side missions. That can pop up here or there, and we've also seen that in previous videos. But coming out of the viewed showcase, footage you folks are going to see here and everywhere else, it actually has a pretty tight feel to it, something Ubisoft seems to have wanted and pushed with this game. The idea that Star Wars Outlaws isn't a huge open world title, but more open lands or locations at each landing point as you do jobs with smaller hub locations branching out with story beats, seems to work. It might be the game's saving grace even, because while I personally would have loved an open world, huge location Star Wars, because to me, if you say Star Wars, you think of all these massive planets you can go to, and instead of a game like an Assassin's Creed, which can at times feel really filled with stuff, we may not be getting that. We're getting a pared down Star Wars. It actually feels like they're nailing that pared down feel. Traveling to different locations based on the jobs you take also influences the actions and the reactions everybody has, and I do feel that maybe what we're going to see is something that feels a little bit more reactive to what a player is doing, and maybe tightens up that story a bit. We'll just have to see how they deliver it. But what I saw made me feel like this game is pretty much exactly where I expected it to be. Made me feel a little bit better about the action, especially some of the stealth and moving around. While it is still gamified in the way we expect, it's certainly not Hitman levels of stealth. What I saw there fit the character, and the idea that this is a smuggler who doesn't go head on into things. Some puzzle work that we saw, as well as some stuff that you guys won't see in these videos, looks like they understand that this is a different style character, and to me, that's actually what I want, is something different, even if it doesn't fit my exact desire for a massive open world. And let's be honest, a lot of people probably are looking at a title like this and thinking, I'm okay with a game that isn't just this massive place to go and maybe get lost in. Maybe it's more of a tight narrative, and to me, looks like they're nailing that part. I'd like to know what you guys think of it, what you guys think of the footage you're seeing around the net, as well as on this video. Peace out. Make sure to thumbs up the video. It absolutely helps.